The first thing we're going to talk about with listening is what's known as active listening. Maybe you've heard about this. It's a very common idea, active listening. Active listening is when I listen to someone else and first of all, I give them my full attention. I'm not trying to think of what I'm going to say next. I just try to focus on listening. That's very difficult. It's very hard to focus because you're already thinking about things. Active listening also says, stops the speaker every once in a while and says, okay, let me see if I can tell you what I've just heard. And you repeat it back to them, maybe using their own words or words like that. And you say, is that right? Did I hear you correctly? And they can agree, but often they will say, oh yes, but there's also this. And they'll tell you something that's important that they hadn't already told you. Oh, so there's also this factor, you say. Right. And as they talk, another thing you're listening for and watching for, because you see a lot, is how this feels to them. So he's telling you about what it was like to go through to get this great debt and that he couldn't figure out. And as he starts to talk, you sense how anxious and worried he is. So you might say, as this debt accumulated and you couldn't get a job, it sounds to me like you also just got more and more anxious, because as I hear you, I can hear how nervous you are, how bothered you are. So it's not just that this happened, it's that it's affected you this way. So active listening takes in not only the words, but the emotion, which you both see in people as they sit there and hear. One time I was with a couple elders in my church, and we were meeting with a woman in the church who was going through some very hard things, not her fault. And as she talked, we listened, and then when she left, one of the men said to me, did you notice how when she started talking about her father, her skin on her arms got red, and she started moving her hands like this? I hadn't noticed that, but that was good listening, because the body was reacting to the emotion of the moment. So when we do active listening, the first thing that's happening is we're getting the whole story, and that's very important. But there's other important things that are happening as well. One is we are communicating real care to this person. Most people have never had anyone listen to them without distraction, without wanting to say something else. They just don't listen. And so it is one of the most loving things we can do when we just listen. It communicates, especially as a pastor, how much you care for them. A second thing it's doing is it's clarifying not only for you, but for them. As they talk and try to help you understand, they realize that they might not have been clear on some things themselves. And so they express it more clearly. They'll say, I guess this really did make me afraid. Or I guess I never thought how much that mattered to me. So it's clarifying for them as well as for you. This listening also helps your counselee become much more open with their feelings. They realize they can trust you, that you're not preaching to them right away, that you're really paying attention. And so they are likely to start telling you more things. It's not uncommon for a good counselor or pastor to hear a person say, I have never told anyone this before. So these things help with openness of the counselee, the person who's come to see you, because they trust you and they're willing to tell you more than they even realized. They don't necessarily come holding back. It's just that you give them openness and place to talk. Finally, as I've kind of mentioned already, when you listen well, your counselee discovers the truth themselves. You don't always even have to tell them what they need to do or how they need to think or what's wrong. When they talk and have space, room, attention, they start to figure things out. And they might say, I guess my problem is this. Or, I never thought about this before, and they have solved their own problem. They have come to their own realization. God is working in their lives all along. So it's not a surprise that they should come to realize a truth. Well, looking back at those situations that we've talked about and any others, there's a couple of tools, and these we will talk about again and again. One tool that you have as you start to listen to someone is ask good questions about what things mean in their story. What do things mean? Why did it mean so much to you that your mother wasn't there? Why were you so insulted when your boss said such and such? What did that mean? Because you might hear this and think, what's the big deal? Why was that a problem? But it meant something to them. What did this mean to you? They might be very plain-faced, very unemotional, but you think, what did this mean? You also want to make good observations. That is, it seems to me like this really upset you. Is that true? You seem like this is very ordinary, but it doesn't sound very ordinary to me. I would have been very troubled. Are you troubled by this? That's the kinds of things we do. So there are questions you can ask. You can ask questions how this has affected their relationship with the Lord, how they might pray about a matter. You can ask, what has changed as you've gone through this? Has it gotten better, worse? Another good question is, have you been through this before, and what happened the last time? What have you done so far? Did it help or did it hurt? Finally, remember this. Insight is probably more valuable than advice. The pastor, our tendency is to want to give advice.
TVS Seminary is a nonprofit project. Our joint effort will bring about the common purpose of making Christian education available around the world and developing good Christian servant leaders. You have a unique opportunity to partner in this effort through your prayer and or financial support of TVS Ministry. For more information, please visit tvsseminary.com.
I'll tell you what you should do. But insight has a lot more impact on people much of the time. Listen, my friend, what I've heard you saying is that this trauma you have been through with the death of your mother has really changed everything about how you do your work. Is that true? And they think a while. They might say, well, it's not quite like that. Okay, tell me what it is like, and then you can talk about that. So insight is one of the things we want to draw on, much more important than advice.